Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another dispatch from a painting studio. So it's cloudy. It's raining, actually. Got cold again. Not cold, but not warm. So I'm going to continue from the Elderfield on Diebenkorn and pick up from where we left off. So I'll just read that last sentence. I have never watched Diebenkorn working. It is the history contained in his pictures themselves that suggests this account of what they're making requires. All right, onward. I cannot imagine that the use of line and area actually alternate in a regular sequence. Let's get this over here. I cannot imagine that the use of line and area actually alternate in a regular sequence in Diebenkorn's painting practice. Nor can I imagine that it is always clear what constitutes line as opposed to area. Still, his paintings are now constructed of a linear framework. They present themselves as affirmatively relational works whose internal relationships are established by the drawing of the edges of areas, and by the drawing of lines that cut through areas, dividing them, or across areas, directing their painterly flow. For all this, however, drawing as such, as something crisply, insistently graphic, as something sharp in its cutting, seems often a somewhat fugitive element in the paintings, hardly quite there for itself alone. Lines embed themselves in color areas, and the eye slips over them, led almost unknowingly in the directions they propose. He's really good. It's like, yeah. They will cluster away from immediate address to the viewer along the top of the picture or down the sides. They can seem extremely reticent, hardly assertive at all. And when they are boldly expressed, it is often in a form confusable with area, broadened and opaqued so that they do not bound or divide, but have an individual tactile presence of their own. But drawing runs through Diebenkorn's compositions. And if it does not insist on its importance, it is because its importance is that of mortar between bricks. Hardly noticeable at times, but what holds the structure together and keeps it firm. But why does drawing have this role, especially in the Ocean Park series? Why does the progress of his painting so depend on it? As I said that drawing is important to Diebenkorn because it allows him access to what he intended. That's quite comfortable today. I don't know. It does more than this, something more specific than this. In the process of painting, drawing mainly sustains what is intended, namely the articulation of the subject of his painting. The aim of that whole process clearly is the realization of his subject. And everything in that process is done in the hope that it will bring on or along that realization. But drawing particularly, because it identifies things, will keep on marking out what that subject might be. We'll keep on drawing it out when it seems to be submerging, and will keep on claiming for itself the deciding role in what that subject might be. At times, the artist refuses it that role, but his refusal will not diminish its importance, will not hide it, certainly. You know, it's interesting. I'm thinking about what happens for me when, like, I'm painting and I'm, just making marks and, or pushing things around and, it gets muddy or mushy or right. And then bringing drawing back in as a way of clarifying and then losing it and going back and forth for sure. What I have been describing in Diebenkorn's paintings is largely true of the works on paper he has made that offer themselves almost as paintings, but it is not entirely true. To begin with, such works do not truly approximate paintings, but rather channel proximate ambitions deemed inappropriate for painting, including the creation of works of small size. And they uncover ambitions for painting too. That's what I think of when I think he's like, all right. Insofar as drawing is concerned, they usually display it more than do the paintings. If I am right that drawing is what sustains Diebenkorn's subjects in the process of painting, this is also to say, therefore, that these works on paper display Diebenkorn's subjects more explicitly than do his paintings, not more literally or more descriptively, but more explicitly, more immediately. The works on paper are generally less aloof than the paintings, speaking to us with greater intimacy about the artist's emotive concerns. They confide in us more. That's great. We see in these works more than the paintings how Diebenkorn seems to think aloud in drawing until he discovers his subject, which is his aim. In the case of his representational work, a nominal subject, the observed motif, obviously exists prior to his drawing. However, the process of drawing, which represents that nominal subject, is also a process of pictorial discovery, whose visible record becomes, in effect, a subject in its own right. The discovery. This can be seen most noticeably in those representational drawings made from softer mediums like charcoal, which clearly reveal the record of their making. Here, visible corrections and alterations, which are no more than discarded means insofar as representation of the nominal subject is concerned, are pictorially as important as any final definitive mark, right? It's like, oh, look what he did before. Oh, just all the layering for sure. Some drawing mediums, noticeably ink drawings, will not allow of alteration in quite the same way. In these, however, the artist will often accumulate definitions, repeating lines or superimposing washes until he finds the one he thinks is correct. In either case, alterations and definitions are equally significant in that chain of affective parts of which Diebenkorn spoke, and which creates what may be called the internal subject of his work. One more paragraph here. In the case of his representational drawings, the process of pictorial discovery, whose record constitutes this internal subject, aims at realization of the nominal subject, the observed motif. In effect, the internal subject manifests the artist's understanding of or emotional reaction to the nominal subject. In the case of his abstract drawings, where there is no nominal subject, there can be, of course, no aim other than realization of the internal subject. But this is not to say that his abstract drawings are therefore cut off from all reference to the observed world. Only that their contact with it is not tied to specific reference, right? Right. Like you can tangentially or, make a, you just feel, oh, this is like that, right? Here, the process of pictorial discovery itself becomes, for Diebenkorn, a way of understanding and reacting to the observed world. At times, parts of these abstract drawings do contain specific references. Many of the early abstract drawings contain references to landscape. Some of the Ocean Park drawings contain reference to earlier works of art. But they mainly refer not specifically at all, but rather by the record of their creation that they just, but they mainly refer not specifically at all, rather by the record of the creation that they display. No. They refer by the record of their creation. When Diebenkorn was a student, his teacher, David Park, had him make a sequence of drawings modeled after Wallace Stevens' poem, 13 Ways of Looking at a Blackbird. As with the 13 variations of the Stevens poem, each drawing had to restate and therefore reinterpret the nominal subject through the imaginative means of creation. In Diebenkorn's simpler abstract drawings, which mostly date from the earlier abstract period, he seems to offer a series of such single, separate interpretations of the world. But in the more complex drawings, which compare to paintings, it is as if 13 ways and more of looking at the world are accumulated in a single work. Nice. As we retrace the layers of their accumulation, we retrace the multiplicity of their interpretation as the pitch of right response mounts. We recreate the totality of their discovery and hence the wholeness of their world. It goes on. There's much, much more. I'm going to stop though. Yeah, it's worth getting the book and reading it. Anyway, this coming week, an opening, 15th anniversary of the Painting Project Student Works exhibition. Is that right? It is an exhibition of the 15th anniversary of the Painting Project. That's it. Anyway, you're in town, if you're in Boulder, you should come. It'll be fun. Hopefully it won't be too cold. And yeah, so a bunch of folks are going to be showing work. I'm going to put up some work. First Friday. Be fun. Okay. Hope you're all well. Drawing, painting, making stuff, staying sane. Definitely important. Be well, everyone. Take care. Bye.